بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome back, my dear students, for this English lesson. So for today's lesson, what are we going to do? Let's take a look. So we are still in Unit 3. Today we have a listening lesson and pronunciation. But what are the objectives of today's lesson? Let's take a look. So do you remember the homework of last lesson? So the previous homework was this. You were asked to choose an adjective for each of these jobs and use the words in the boxes or your own ideas. Okay, so here are the jobs: teacher, dentist, lawyer, computer programmer, reporter. And choose one of the adjectives that can describe this job: easy, difficult, exciting, fun, and interesting. I will show you here an example of the last homework. It's a conversation between two, A and B. A said, "I think computer programmers have an exciting job." B, "Yes, they can create new games and applications." Now, let's take a look. What is the job here? It's computer programmer. So what is the adjective that we use to describe this job? Exciting. Exciting, we used it to describe the job of the computer programmers. Now, let's take a look at the map of this lesson and see where are we now. So we are done with all of these lessons. Today, we have listening and pronunciation. Let's take a look at the objectives of today's lesson. So, by the end of the lesson, you will be able to answer specific questions based on the listening text and identify the pronunciation of want to in a context. Now, let's take a look at this picture. What do you think the job that is related to this picture? Is it an engineer, a lawyer, a teacher? Look at the tools and the things around the picture. It could be a judge or something about law. Now, we are going to listen to a text and we want to find some answers. Let's read the sentences first to find the answers for these sentences. Number 1, the job is interesting and exciting. A person doesn't need to be smart. The job is stressful. Now, what about the text? So, Raymond wants to be a lawyer. What does he say? Now we want to find the answers for these sentences and we will write yes or no. Let's listen to the audio.
I want to go to law school. I want to be a lawyer. I think a lawyer's job is interesting and exciting and very important. You need to be really smart. Lawyers work long hours, they read many books, and they are under a lot of stress. Sometimes a person's life or all his money is in the lawyer's hands. Lawyers need to be good speakers. They need to make other people believe in them and in what they're saying. Well, I'm a good student and I speak well. Of course, some lawyers make a lot of money, and that's good. But the real reason why I want to be a lawyer is because I want to follow in my grandfather's footsteps. He was a lawyer for many years.
Now, let's take a look at the sentences and write yes or no. What does he think about these sentences? So, number 1, the job is interesting and exciting. Does Raymond think the job is interesting and exciting? Yes, he thinks that. Number 2, a person doesn't need to be smart. Let's take a look. What do you think? He thinks that a person needs to be smart or doesn't need to be smart? The answer is no. A person needs to be smart. Number 3, the job is stressful. Yes, he thinks the job is stressful. Now let's take a look at the next set of sentences. Raymond is a good speaker. He wants to be a lawyer for the money. Raymond's grandfather was a lawyer. So what do you think about the first one? Raymond is a good speaker. Is he? Yes, he's a good speaker. What about the second one? He wants to be a lawyer for the money. No, he doesn't want to be a lawyer for the money. The last one, Raymond's grandfather was a lawyer. Yes, Raymond's grandfather was a lawyer. That's why he wants to be a lawyer. Now I have these questions for you. I want to read the questions and I want you to find the answer in the audio that you will listen to now. Find the answer for this question. Number 1, what does Raymond want to be? Number 2, how long do lawyers work? Number 3, why does Raymond want to be a lawyer? Now, listen to the audio and let's answer.
I want to go to law school. I want to be a lawyer. I think a lawyer's job is interesting and exciting and very important. You need to be really smart. Lawyers work long hours, they read many books, and they are under a lot of stress. Sometimes a person's life or all his money is in the lawyer's hands. Lawyers need to be good speakers. They need to make other people believe in them and in what they're saying. Well, I'm a good student, and I speak well. Of course, some lawyers make a lot of money, and that's good. But the real reason why I want to be a lawyer is because I want to follow in my grandfather's footsteps. He was a lawyer for many years.
Let's take a look at the first question and answer. What does Raymond want to be? He wants to be a lawyer. Wants to be a lawyer. Now, the next question, how long do lawyers work? Lawyers work for long hours. Now, what about the last question? Why does Raymond want to be a lawyer? He wants to follow the footsteps of his grandfather. His grandfather was a lawyer, so he's trying to do the same. Now, let's take a look at the next part here, the pronunciation part in the book. Look at the picture. What is this job? Look at the boy wearing a helmet. Is it for engineers? Is it for lawyers? Is it for pilots? So this helmet, it's for pilots. Now, I will read the sentences and listen to the way I say 1, 2, okay? And then I want you to practice. I want to be a pilot. I want to be a pilot. What do you want to be? What do you want to be? I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. Do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be a teacher? Now, did you listen to the way we said these two words together? 1, 2. I don't want to be a doctor. Now, I want you to practice yourself. Let's take a look at the next part here. Write 2 questions for each answer. Use the WH questions. Just like this. Here we have this answer. Khalid works in a bank. And here I have 2 questions for this answer. The first question, who works in a bank? Who works in a bank? And the next question, where does Khalid work? Where does Khalid work? So this is the answer for both of these questions. Who works in a bank? Khalid works in a bank. Where does Khalid work? Khalid works in a bank. Now, we are going to do the same thing with these sentences. Now, let's take a look at the answer of this question. Walid is a journalist at the newspaper. Walid is a journalist at the newspaper. We want 2 questions for this answer. Let's take a look at the first one. What does Walid do? Do you remember yesterday in the last lesson when we said, what does Walid do? We said, what do you do? It means, what is your job? What does Walid do? Let's take a look at the next question. Who is a journalist? Who is a journalist? The answer is, Walid is a journalist at the newspaper. Let's take a look at the next answer and find two questions. Rashid is an executive in an advertising firm. Now we want two questions. Where does Rashid work? Where does Rashid work? Asking about the place. Where? Rashid is an executive in an advertising firm. Advertising firm. Now, what about the next question? What does Rashid do? What is his job? Rashid is an executive in an advertising firm. Now, let's take a look at the next here. Tariq and Adnan take the bus to school in the morning. So we want two questions. What could they be? Number one, where do Tariq and Adnan take the bus? Where? To school in the morning, to school. So Tariq and Adnan take the bus to school in the morning. Now, what about the next question? Who takes the bus to school in the morning? The answer is Tariq and Adnan. Tariq and Adnan take the bus to school in the morning. Because we have Tariq and Adnan, we are not adding S to the word take, to the verb take. Now, let's take a look at the next picture here. We have a picture of a nice park, and let's read the answer. Ali plays football in the park after school on Thursdays. Now, let's find two questions here. Let's take a look at the first one. What does Ali do on Thursdays? Ali plays football in the park after school on Thursdays. Now, here we asked about what does he do? He plays football. What about the next question here? When does Ali play football? When? We're asking about the time. Here on Thursdays. Which days? Thursdays. Ali plays football in the park after school on Thursdays. Now, for the next question here, they speak English at home. Now, let's take a look at the questions. Where do they speak English? Because we have the pronoun they in the answer, we have it here also in the question. What do they speak? Where do they speak English? They speak English at home. The location. Now, what about the next question? What do they speak at home? What do they speak at home? They speak English at home. Now, so let's take a look. So these were the questions in the workbook, page 98. Now, let's take a look at the questions here on page 99 in the workbook. We want to complete the conversation and find a suitable word for it. Look at the picture here. There's a conversation between Asma and Maha. What did Asma say? What does your father do? Maha, he's a teacher. He, something at high school. He's a teacher. Teacher. He what at high school? He teaches. Teaches. Do you see the letter S here? He teaches. Why? Because we have the pronoun he. He teaches at high school. Now, let's take a look at the next conversation between Yahya and Faris. What does your cousin do? What does your cousin do? Here we have a picture of a game. It's a football. So this sport, it's a football. So the person who's playing football is a what? Now, let's read. What does your cousin do? Faris, he plays football. He's a professional football what? What is the name of the job? player. We add ER. Player. Now, let's take a look at this picture. What is this job? So there's a conversation between Farah and Noura. Farah, what does Maryam do? Noura, she's a nurse. She something at the hospital. She what? She works. Do you see the S with the verb? She works at the hospital. Now, let's take a look at this video. Tell me, what is the man doing here in the video? Can you guess the job from the video? So there's a conversation here between Muna and Hanan. So Muna said, my brother's a something. What is the profession here? What is his job? He's a writer. My brother's a writer. Writer. Hanan, what does he write? What does he write? Muna, he something every morning. He what? He writes every morning. He writes every morning. The job is writer. What does he do? He writes. We added S to the verb here. Now, take a look at this picture. What is this job? So he's wearing a helmet. There are some things on the table here for which job? Let's take a look at the conversation here between Faisal and Yusuf and guess. Faisal said, my brothers are engineers. My brothers are engineers. Yusuf, really? My brother, something too. My brother what? What could be a suitable word? My brother is an engineer too. Is an engineer too. Now, what did we do in today's lesson? So, we answered specific questions based on a listening text. Do you remember the text we talked about? We answered the question about? It's about Raymond who wants to be a lawyer. We answered question about the text. And we identified the pronunciation of want and to in a context, like, I want to be a doctor. Do you want to be a teacher? Now, for your homework, what are you going to do? I want you to say 3 things you want to do in the future. Record an audio of you reading these 3 sentences. So you will write 1, 2, 3 sentences of things you want to do in the future. I want to be an artist. I want to paint. Or I want to be a teacher. And I want you to record these 3 sentences. Write them and record them. And thank you very much. And I will see you in the next lesson.